Peace be with you. Friends, we turn now from our Johannine hiatus. We were looking at chapter 6 of John's Gospel for the past several weeks. We return now to our reading of the Gospel of Mark, which we're doing during this liturgical cycle. And the readings today, all three of them, are about the law. And the law is a very interesting theme now in the Bible. And I think from an American standpoint, we have this very ambiguous relationship to law. On the one hand, we're a nation of independently minded people. Don't tread on me. Don't tell me what to do. There's kind of a libertarian streak within Americans. We don't like the law imposing itself on us. At the same time, let's face it, we are a hyper-litigious society. Lawyers and laws are very thick on the ground in our society. People will make fun sometimes of the ancient Jewish law, with its 600 and some precepts. Oh, that's nothing compared to the American book of legal statutes. Are you kidding? It would dwarf anything in the Bible. So we kind of balk at the law. At the same time, we have this great reverence for law. I remember Cardinal George, my mentor, used to point out that America is very much shaped by a Protestant culture. And the two great Protestant reformers, Martin Luther and John Calvin, were both lawyers. They were law students early in their life. And so this kind of legal preoccupation marks our society. Well, I think the same kind of ambiguity about law you can see reflected in these readings, that there's something beautiful and necessary about law, and there's something a little dangerous about law. And I'll just say something simple now about each one of those. Listen first now. Our first reading is from the book of Deuteronomy, this marvelous final book of the Torah. Moses lays out the benefits of God's law. Listen. Now, Israel, hear the statutes and decrees which I am teaching you to observe. Observe them carefully, for thus you will give evidence of your wisdom and intelligence to the nations. The law, that's what Torah means, right? The law was the pride and joy of Israel. It's what made Israel the chosen people, the great people they were. They couldn't claim political power. They couldn't claim, great artistic accomplishment. They weren't an economic power, but they had the law from the Lord. It made them distinctive. It gave them their power. And think of it this way. Whatever we take seriously, whatever we think is beautiful, we tend to surround with laws. Why? Well, to protect the integrity of that which we find good and beautiful. So there's a lousy, vacant lot somewhere. There's not going to be a lot of laws about it because we don't have reverence for it. But take something like the game of baseball. People that love baseball, they reverence it because of its beauty and its integrity. Well, baseball, are you kidding? It's marked by all kinds of laws that define how it should be played. There are all kinds of limitations that hem in the game so as to protect its integrity. I've used probably tiresomely for some of you, the example of golf a lot, but not only is the rule book of golf pretty thick, all the rules that govern the actual playing of golf, but think of those rules that govern the golf swing itself. Golfers love those laws because we reverence the golf swing. We want it to become better. It gives us great joy if we do it properly. And so we want laws to surround it. We like the laws. We don't think they're an imposition. We think they actually liberate us. And now, with that golf example in mind, listen to this line from the second reading from the letter of James. Humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls. There's a whole world in that line. Let me say it again. Humbly welcome the word that's been planted in you and is able to save your souls. What's the word here but the word of God? The Torah, if you want, the law of the Lord that has come to us through hearing, as St. Paul says. And in St. James' language, it has been planted in us. Now, I stay with the golf thing because you can read a book about the golf swing. I do that. All golfers, good and bad, do that. And we study. Here's how you swing the club properly. But the whole point is not to keep those laws out there in the pages of a book. It's to bring them into you. So they get into your muscle memory. They get into your instincts. They become part of you. So when you pick up the golf club, you're not tempted to swing it poorly because the law of golf has been so internalized. It's able to give you a good swing, right? Now, put it in the spiritual context. The law of the Lord. Oh, the Lord always imposing his laws on me and always telling me what to do. Well, that's a stupid attitude. That's a bad attitude. That's like a golfer saying, hey, Ben Hogan and Arnold Palmer and Jet Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, don't give me your laws. Don't lay your hang-ups on me. No, the golfer wants those laws. What I wouldn't give to have in me what's in Tiger Woods or what's in Jack Nicklaus. Well, the same thing here is the law of the Lord, the word of the Lord, seeps into our hearts, into our minds, into our instincts, into our bodies. Who are saints but those who have so internalized the law that they effortlessly move according to its dictates? Mind you, that's not slavery. It's the opposite. That's finding freedom. I'm free to swing that darn golf club properly because I've internalized the rules of golf, the laws of the swing. So the saint is able to move with great freedom through the world because she has welcomed the word and understands how that word is able to save her soul. So all of that is meant to emphasize the goodness of the law, the importance of it. We should overcome this sort of immature preoccupation with, hey, walk in my own way and don't lay your hang-ups on me. That's silly adolescent talk. No, the more spiritually mature you are, the more you want the laws of the Lord inside of you. Okay, so far so good. But when we turn to the gospel, and this is a very helpful balance. In the gospel, we see, if you want, the shadow side of law. What can happen to law when it's kind of misappropriated or when it's misconstrued? Let me just read you a little bit. It's from the Gospel of Mark, and he's talking about the Pharisees and the scribes who have gathered around Jesus, and he's trying to explain to us what these people are about. He says, the Pharisees do not eat without carefully washing their hands, keeping the tradition of the elders. On coming to the marketplace, they do not eat without purifying themselves. There are many other things that they've traditionally observed, the purification of cups and jugs and kettles and beds. So he's laying out this sort of preoccupation with the minutia of the Jewish law. And so these men who are kind of obsessed with this minutia are coming to Jesus and his disciples and complaining that they don't follow all of these prescripts. So what does the Lord say? How well did Isaiah prophesy about you hypocrites? This people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Listen now. You disregard God's commandment, but cling to mere human tradition. So now we're looking, as I say, at the shadow side of law. I'm not going to take back one little thing I said about the law and the beauty and importance of it. Jesus is the Torah made flesh. That's a way to understand the word becoming flesh. He's the law of God made flesh. So I'm not saying one little thing bad about that. But I'll say just a few things now about the shadow side. The first is what Jesus points out here, a tendency to mistake the essential for the non-essential, or the non-essential for the essential. Are there certain laws that are really fundamental, that are so basic? Yeah, that govern the moral life and govern the spiritual life. Think of the Ten Commandments, for example. Things that are so central to being spiritually and morally healthy that they can't be disobeyed. But along with those, are there traditions that have come into the law that probably originally had a very good purpose? So like, for example, the cleansing of the jugs and the kettles and the plates and all that. Sure, it's a gesture toward ritual purity. It's a way of signaling, your reverence for the Lord and all that. But is there a tendency, and it's just built in, I think, to any religious structure, to mistake the non-essential for the essential and to become preoccupied with the sort of trivial minutia of the law? Can I give you an example here? Not that long ago, I was on YouTube and I saw this old video of Pope Pius XII, sometime in the 1950s probably, being carried into St. Peter's on the sedia gestatoria. Remember, that was the seat that the people would hold up, and he was surrounded by courtiers with ostrich plumes, and they were kind of fanning him as he went by. Well, from an historical standpoint, and as a Catholic student of Catholicism, I find that sort of fascinating. But, those moves fell away after Vatican II. Paul VI got rid of most of that. John Paul II never revived it. Neither did Benedict XVI, nor his Pope Francis. The point is, those things which originally borrowed from European court ceremonial was meant to signal, the reverence to the Pope, and all that's great. But I think more contemporary popes have said, yeah, but they carry such a negative overtone of kind of triumphalism. And so they were allowed to fall to the side. Are there some people that mistake those merely human traditions for what is essential to God's law? That's the first problem. Here's the second one. Maybe keep the jugs and the kettles and the plates and all that stuff in mind, and all the little moves of purification. Can there be a stifling quality to the law if it's not properly understood? What I mean is, I'm so aware of all of these laws, both central and non-essential, that I become essentially paralyzed by them. I become obsessive compulsive about them. Think here of, I'll go back to golf again, I'm sorry, but there's a famous poster, and it shows this golfer and he's lining up to the ball, and there's a list of about 100 recommendations and tips, right, that he should have in mind as he's over the ball. And the last one is relax and swing away. Well, of course, if you've got all of that, both essential and trivial in your mind, you're not able to swing. In fact, it's undermining the golf swing. We call it paralysis by analysis. Well, something similar can happen in the spiritual order if the law has become this kind of obsessive preoccupation with detail and minutia. Here's just a last observation, and boy, read the letters of Paul if you want to see this. Can the law, in all of its beauty, I'm not saying one little thing against that, but can the law at times become a means of aggression? You know what I'm saying? Since I know the law so well, I can point out exactly what you're doing wrong. Can I put me one more golf example? Is if you want to undermine your golf partner, this is really bad etiquette, but if you want to undermine your golf partner, just say, I noticed that when you're coming down, your elbow is a little too far from your side, and that's why you're coming across the ball. Now, they say you should never do that in the golf course. You should never give people unsolicited advice. But see, what you're doing there is you're taking a law of golf, which is legitimate, and you're kind of planting it aggressively in that guy's mind. You're using the law to attack him. Now, I know we all say piously, oh, I would never do that. No, the law of God is just wonderful. Read Paul again. How the law can become a source of aggression if it's used not in a spirit of love. Okay, law, it's great, it's beautiful, we love it, we reverence it. And law carries with it a certain shadow side. How wonderful that the Bible is so frank about the problem, even as it sings the beauty of law. And God bless you.